Hello, 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 my loves. As always, I hope that this live or this replay finds you well and in excellent spirits. Happy Monday, and welcome to another edition of the weekly Astro Forecast live here in the Astro Room on YouTube and now on Facebook. So, if you're joining me on Facebook for the first time, welcome. All right. So, I am Mel, your favorite astrologer, and I'm the founder of Divine Feminine Works, where I help people unlock their divinity and discover their magic. So, if this is your first time here, welcome. And as always, if you are returning, welcome back. So, this channel is everything astrology, spirituality, and manifestation. So, if those are the things you like, if those are the things you love, or if those are the things you want to learn more about, don't forget to head over to YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe button, and that notification bell so you will always be notified when I come out with new content. All right, my loves. So, this is the weekly astro forecast for the week of May 19th through May 25th, 2025. All right, so I hope you guys are feeling good. Hope you guys have a good start to your week. This is going to be a somewhat dynamic week because we have a season change, right? We are going from Taurus season to Gemini season beginning tomorrow. And we all are very familiar with Gemini energy. You know, I joke about it a lot as being very mixy and being like a toddler. And while that is true, I mean that with all of the love and sincerity, right? Hello, Scorpio Muse. Thank you so much for joining. Yeah, Gemini energy, it's very communicative. It's literally like a toddler in the best way possible. And that's what we are starting with tomorrow. Then we have another major change, which is Saturn entering the sign of Aries, which is a pretty big deal. It's one of the major astrological events of 2025. And then we've got Mercury moving into Gemini as well. And Gemini is Mercury's home sign. So things are going to get very interesting. So, to start things off, you'll want to take out your natal chart and you'll want to look to see where Gemini and where Aries are in your chart. These are the areas of life that are going to be lit up beginning this week. All right. But before I get into all of those juicy details of the astrology for the week, of course, housekeeping and announcements. So if you are joining me here on the live, thank you so much for tuning in. I sincerely appreciate you. Definitely say hi in the comment section or join the chat. Tell everyone you're here. And I also want everyone to comment with their sun sign. Let's all get to know each other by sun sign. So comment in the chat, in the comments, what your sun sign is, say hello, and hit that like button, please. And thank you. It lets the algorithm know that you like this content. So it'll push it out to other people that like this content as well. All right. And if you're watching this on the replay, I appreciate you just as much. And I sincerely hope that you get what you're looking for with this. So whether you want information on astrology, you want to know what your week is going to look like, you're just curious to see what an astrological forecast is like, if I deliver on any of those things, definitely hit that like button, subscribe button, and notification bell if you haven't already. All right, so in terms of announcements, so Gemini season is beginning, which means that my Taurus season offering, which was called your Taurus season wealth map, that is ending beginning tomorrow. So if you haven't checked it out, there's still time to schedule until tomorrow at least. The link will be in the description box below. And I will be unveiling my Gemini season offering later this week. So definitely stay tuned for that. Subscribe, all that good stuff, so you'll be notified when it drops. And speaking of this week, I kick off my summer workshop series. So beginning now and once a month, I will be doing a different workshop. And May's workshop is called Seasonal Living 101. All right. So I like to describe this as your personal cheat code to life. All right. And I know that sounds really dramatic. I know that sounds like, ugh, Melissa, what are you talking about? Whatever. But I call it that because when I learned how to work with nature, with the cycles of nature, life truly changed. My business changed, my life changed, everything sort of fell into place. And what I mean by seasonal living is learning how to live by the astrological seasons. If you have energy at your disposal, it would be foolish to not use it, right? And to use it to your advantage. That's exactly what this workshop helps you do. It helps you identify the energy and how to use it for your advantage. All right. It's going to be really cute, really informative workshop. Plus, you get a little digital goodie bag for attending. All right. So if you are interested, link is in the description box below. It will also be tagged to this live so you can check it out. It's happening Thursday, which is May 22nd at 8 p.m. Eastern. All right. So if you can't make it, you definitely do get the replay, but you're going to want to come live. Check it out live because that's where you'll get your digital goodie bag. All right. And again, that's Seasonal Living, Thursday, May 22nd at 8 p.m. Eastern. All right. And also, if you're kind of new to astrology, you're kind of just dipping your toes into the waters, consider downloading my free digital resource, which is called Lunar Living Starting Pack. So very much on brand with seasonal living, the Lunar Living Starter Pack helps you understand the cycles of the moon and how to use that energy to your advantage as well. And if you are a woman, this really is for women. Let's just say that. I mean, this channel is called Divine Feminine Work, so whatever. And my demographic is mostly women. It's a digital workbook and tracker that helps you track the cycles of your moon, helps you track your own personal moon cycle, and helps you understand how you work and how to work with the energy. If you're interested, it's a great sort of segue into astrology and how I use astrology. I use astrology in everyday life. This isn't just about teaching you terms and what the planets mean. This is about helping you understand the energy and use it to level up in your life, right? And this is a great entryway into all of that. So if you're interested in that, the link will also be in the description box below. All right, so that's pretty much it by way of announcement. So let's get into the week and let us begin with the theme of the week, which is think it, say it, have it. Okay, and this is everything having to do with Gemini energy. Okay, Gemini energy, especially with Mercury entering Gemini this week as well. It's all about communication. It's all about our mindset. It's all about speaking things into existence. Gemini is the essence of air. It is the first of the air signs. It's a mutable air sign. It is about change, flexibility, adaptability, and being able to go from one thing to the other. Now, Gemini doesn't necessarily get this happens every week, and I don't know how to fix it. I've really tried. But yeah, Gemini is not necessarily associated with transformation, right? That's very much Scorpio kind of energy. However, because of the mutable nature of Gemini, and by mutable, that's Gemini's modality, that's part of the Gemini energy signature. And because it's mutable, because it's communicative, because it's like air, it really does take you sort of from one state to another, particularly in a mental state, right? So in that way, it is kind of transformative. In that way, it helps you change things. It literally is about speaking things into existence and change, affecting change in that way, right? And so everything about Gemini season is mental. It's also very busy. Here in the Northern Hemisphere, it's heating up. I mean, I live in Florida, and while it is warm, for pretty much the entire year right now, it's like hotter than the devil's booty hole. Okay. It's really hot right now. It's heating up everywhere. We've got graduations. It's wedding season. People are out. People are barbecuing. There's just more social activity, right? That's very emblematic of Gemini energy. Gemini energy is social. It's communicative. I like to call it the busy bee, the busybody of the zodiac. But it's also like a toddler. It's also just running all over the place, screaming and, being very loud and exercising that throat chakra, right? That's very emblematic of Gemini energy. And this is the energy that's sort of at the forefront of our minds. It's where our consciousness is going to be focused for the next 4 weeks. And so this is about your mindset, okay? Now, the thing that can be a little tricky with Gemini is the fact that it could lead to too much chatter, too much talking, too much thinking, especially since we still have Jupiter in the sign of Gemini. So it's like you've got 100 thoughts. You've got so many different plans. There's so much going on. The amount of distractions is, just enormous, right? There's just a lot of Gemini energy at our disposal. And with the sun moving through Gemini and going to hit Jupiter, while it's there, it's going to put everything on full blast. So you're going to want to pay attention to wherever Gemini is in your natal chart so that you can understand which area of life is really going to be activated at this time. Okay. And so, with that being said, it's always a great time during Gemini season to take stock of your mindset, to take stock of what you're actually saying, to take stock of your narrative, right? You know how there are certain, like, you'll know someone and they have like a certain catchphrase that they always say. There's something that they always say. There's a certain way that they always say it. It's very emblematic of Gemini energy, right? And so I would say you are tasked with, it's almost like when Gemini season comes around, it always makes me think of taglines, right? Like, what is the slogan that you go by? What's a saying that you say all the time? And I know that may seem kind of weird or random, but there's so much power in words. And this may not be something that you say to people all the time. Maybe it's something that you say to yourself, but there can be so much information to glean from the things that you say regularly, right? For instance, kind of on the negative side, if you make a mistake and you're like, oh, I'm so stupid, or oh, I can never get this right, and you happen to say that a lot, that's kind of your tagline, right? That's a phrase that you say, and the more you say it, the more power you give to it. Remember, you literally can speak things into existence, and Gemini season is a great time to put that to use, to experiment with that, because the energy is so potent when it comes to that. But we cast spells all the damn time by what we say about ourselves, what we say about others, what we say about life, what we say about our jobs, right? Everything that we say is a spell, right? So, what are you saying? What are you saying? What are you thinking about? Sometimes, when you're talking about, or when not manifestation, when meditation is being talked about, right? Oftentimes it's like you're told you have to quiet your monkey mind, right? It's like you've got a monkey with symbols just going off in your brain all the time and different things, and you know what I'm talking about. And how there's so many distractions, so many things vying for your attention that permeate your thoughts, right? And in permeating your thoughts, it's like that's what becomes your story. That's what becomes your tagline. That's what becomes your saying, right? So it's really important that you take stock of not only what you say, but also what you ingest, right? Because Gemini isn't just talking, it's communication, it's hearing, receiving, and all of those things. So it's really important that you take stock of that. And Gemini season will definitely help you do that. Now, the other facet of Gemini energy that I love is that it is associated with learning, but like learning specific skills. So when you think about Gemini energy, you can associate it with like, okay, learning how to make a meal, learning how to play guitar, learning how to day trade, right? Like these very specific kind of disciplines or these very specific kind of subjects is the subject matter of Gemini. And the one thing, if you know me, those who know me well, know that I love knowledge for knowledge's sake, right? I'm a Virgo, so I'm very good with details, good with facts and trivia and stuff like that. Like I will remember the littlest detail, and it always invariably comes in handy later. Like that's very much emblematic of Gemini energy. All right. And then finally, when it comes to this Gemini energy, it is about being social. It's about expressing yourself, right? It's like when you think about a toddler, and I constantly equate Gemini energy to toddler energy. And again, no shade, no shade at all. Um, they're very communicative. They're very fun. They're very social. Like they don't yet know that they're not supposed to be social, right? That's an important thing that I think we lose as we become adults, right? We get jaded by life, and when it comes to making friends and the trials and tribulations that comes with that, we can end up being a little hesitant when it comes to those kind of things. However, Gemini season wants you to be social. It is no surprise that this is the season of parties, barbecues, when the weather starts to get warm. Gemini is the transition between spring and summer, right? And so depending on where you live, spring could really just be an extended winter, right? But once Gemini season comes around, things really start to warm up. This is when school ends for some people. This is when people have more free time to socialize. And that's very important, not just for the socialization part of it, but true to Gemini energy, you learn from people. Hanging out with them, communicating with them, all of that stuff, you learn from them. That's one of the best facets of Gemini energy. So, as we begin this new season, it's really important for you to socialize, and it's really important for you to take stock of what you say about yourself, what you think about yourself, what you think about anything. And Gemini season allows you to change that if you want to. And that's the beauty of it. All right. So that is the theme for the week. So now let's move into the week itself and see what we've got going on exactly. All right. So this is what we got going on. Quite a bit, but not too crazy. So we start off the week with the sun moving into Gemini. Then we've got Sun sextile Saturn, Sun sextile Neptune, Venus trine Mars, Mercury sextile the North Node, Saturn in Aries. That's another very big sort of transit that we'll talk about. Sunshine Pluto, Mercury conjunct Uranus, Mercury moving into Gemini, and then Mercury sextile Saturn. All right, so let's see what the moon is doing this week, shall we? Okay. So this week we start off with the moon in the sign of Pisces, and it'll be in the last quarter phase. And then for the rest of the week, the moon will be in the waning crescent phase in Aries and Taurus. And we know that the waning crescent phase is when we start to power down. This is when we divest ourselves of what we no longer need. And it's sort of that last push, that last call to get rid of what you don't need before the new moon. And we do have a new moon happening next Monday in the sign of Gemini. All right. So let's move into the week. And of course, we begin with Tuesday. So on Tuesday, we have the sun moving into Gemini. Then the sun will sextile Saturn before it moves into Gemini. Then it'll move into Gemini. And that same day, we have the last quarter moon in Pisces. All right. So, this just wants to keep coming up. That's fine. All right. So let's talk about the sun sextile Saturn. Okay. Because this is going to happen before the sun moves into Gemini. So the sun will be at the very last degree of Taurus, and Saturn will be at the very last degree of Pisces. Okay. And so this is the first word I heard right now, it's very feminine energy. So this particular transit, sun sextile Saturn, is about receiving. Okay. And it's so interesting because the original sort of description I had is not what I'm being shown right now. So this is perhaps opportunities where you can receive accolades, where you can receive rewards, where you can receive money, resources as a result of hard work. Okay. Saturn is in the last degree of the last zodiac sign. Pisces is the last zodiac sign. Saturn is at the last degree. So with the sun in Taurus at that very last degree as well, Taurus rules things like money, things like possessions, like material things. And so this is opportunities for a pat on the back. So this could mean a promotion. It could mean leadership opportunities. It could just mean something that you've been working on for a while, finally coming to a culmination, right? It could be something as simple as you selling a car, right? And getting the money for that. This could be graduation. This could be a promotion. This could be a project at work finally wrapping up, right? This could be closing a big deal, particularly if you are like a business owner. So it's a very positive sort of thing that requires you to be receptive and open to receiving. Now, the caveat with this is if you didn't do any of the hard work, there's probably nothing for you to receive, okay? Because Saturn is the planet of obstacles, challenges, but Saturn always gives you a reward for doing your homework, essentially. So if you've been working on something, if you've been really putting in those hours, if you've really been going through a perhaps tough situation or a challenging time, this particular transit may find you reaping the rewards of that or getting some sort of recognition or opportunities for that, I should say, which is always a good thing. And then after that happens, the sun is going to move into the sign of Gemini, heralding Gemini season. All right. And so wherever Gemini is in your natal chart is the area of life that's going to be activated and lit up for the next 4 weeks. This is all about socializing. It's all about your mindset, transacting business, learning new things. It could have to do with short distance trips. Maybe this is sparking you to go on a road trip over the next 4 weeks at some point. Sort of the textbook sun in Gemini kind of energy. All right. But just keep in mind, it's not going to happen yet. It'll likely happen in June. But the sun will conjunct Jupiter, which is going to be a very positive day, but it's going to take everything in your Gemini house and sort of blow it up. We have a little ways to get there, but I just want to forewarn you because the way that Jupiter works, it seriously expands things. All right. So wherever Gemini is in your house, things are going to start to ramp up. But not just that. Whenever the sun is in Gemini, things tend to get very busy. There's lots of emails, lots of things going on. Like you may find that this is the time of year when things just ramp up. All right. So it's really important to keep that in mind as well. And remember, not everything warrants your attention. And that's one of the caveats of Sun in Gemini energy, I find. With so much going on, with so many distractions, it can be really hard to stay focused. It can be really hard to sit still. That Gemini energy can also kind of feel like ants in your pants, wanting to do a million and one things and be social and work overtime while still having a social life. Like that's kind of Gemini energy, right? That could not only run you ragged, but you may be focusing or you may be tempted to focus on things that don't necessarily matter or things that are just fluff, right? Things that are just not substantial, not really doing anything for you, just some sort of distraction, just busy work. So your task is sort of to stay on task despite the fact that there may be so much going on. All right, that's the one caveat I'll say. But other than that, use the energy of Gemini in order to create some new things, speak some things into existence. And of course, if you want to know more about that, then you will definitely want to sign up for Thursday's workshop, Seasonal Living 101, where I will talk about not just Gemini energy, but the energy of the entire year and how to take advantage of it. Link is in the description box below. All right. And then that same day, we have the last quarter moon in Pisces. Okay. And so the last quarter is halfway between the full moon and the new moon. And this is when we kind of take stock of what we did, what we haven't done, and we kind of just keep moving forward. Okay. And so in the sign of Pisces, Pisces being the last sign of the zodiac, it's about sort of like wrapping things up. It's very karmic, can feel very final, but it's also about divesting yourself of emotions or emotional baggage that does not belong to you. Okay. Pisces is like a sponge, it kind of just soaks up everything. Pisces is very sensitive. And along the way, even if you're not someone with prominent Pisces energy, we all have all facets of all 12 zodiac signs, right? If you didn't know, now you know. Pisces energy, it's like you can absorb things that are not yours. Like, for instance, very simple instance, the person that you live with, whether it's a spouse, family, whomever, let's say they had a horrible day at work. They come home and they are mean, they're nasty, they're whatever. Now, all of a sudden, you're on eggshells. Now, when someone talks to you, you're kind of nasty. You're kind of in a bad mood because that person's in a bad mood. Meanwhile, before that person got home, you were just fine. Maybe you were in a really great mood, right? Pisces can really do that. It can really absorb other people's shit. And when you have the waning moon in Pisces, it's like divest yourself of what isn't yours. If you were just fine before this person got there, don't allow people to dump their energy on you, their emotions, whatever. You have to set boundaries, and that can be a thing because Pisces is notorious for not necessarily having boundaries or not enforcing boundaries. However, when the moon is waning in Pisces, think about where you need to set boundaries, particularly emotionally, because everything plays a part in manifestation, right? That's why they say To complete manifestation, you need all four elements. You need air, earth, water, and fire, right? And so when we talk about water, which is emotions, your emotions fuel your manifestations, right? They give it life. They sort of blow it up in a way, in a good way. I don't mean blow up like destroy. They sort of inflate it, right? Make it real. And if you are carrying other people's emotions that may be contrary to what you're trying to do, or even contrary to who you are, that can kind of mess up your shit, right? Like, again, if you were in a great mood, you were working on something, this person comes into your space, into your environment, and they're nasty, they're rude, they're moody, right? Now, all of a sudden, you can't focus on what you're doing because you're sort of involved in their emotional mess, right? Set some boundaries. Setting boundaries is not just great for manifestation, it's great for everything. So when the moon is waning in Pisces, set boundaries. Anything that cannot cross that boundary has got to go. Okay? Word to the wise. So that's Tuesday. So now let's move on to Thursday. So on Thursday, we've got the Sun sextile Neptune, Venus trine Mars, and then we've got the waning crescent moon in Aries. All right. So let's talk about Sun sextile Neptune. Okay. This is a sort of dreamy kind of transit, but with some bite to it. Okay. Because the Sun will have just gone into Gemini and Neptune is just freshly in Aries. So it's this desire, right, to have a new dream, a new destination, a new trajectory, wanting to start something new and sort of fashioning your mind around it. Neptune rules dreams, right? And not just dreams when you sleep, but dreams like aspirations. And Neptune in Aries, it really wants you to take action on those dreams, right? It's not just Neptune spent, I want to say, 14 years in Pisces. Okay. And so with Neptune in Pisces, it was about having the dream and having the imagination, sort of like a dream when you sleep, right? It was pie in the sky. It wasn't necessarily real. It was imagination. It was fantasy. Now that Neptune has moved into Aries, it's like you got to take that fantasy and make it a reality and take action on it. That's what Neptune wants you to do right now, among other things. And then with a sextile to the Sun, this allows you to get your mind on board. Not only your mind on board, it allows you to literally speak it into existence. So, for instance, right, let's say you have a dream of starting a business. This Sun sextile Neptune is a great opportunity for you to maybe pitch to investors, to, maybe even try to get a loan, right? To start advertising this business, right? Or at least telling people. Maybe you haven't incorporated yet or anything like that, but it's great to say, hey, I'm doing this now. Or, hey, I noticed that you need help with this. I'm starting a business and doing it's the time to get vocal about your dreams. It's time to get your mind on board and then to speak it into existence or to communicate what it is that you do. Taking this sort of example further, let's say you have like a service-based business. Like let's say you are an accountant, right? And you're opening your own accounting firm. This particular transit is great for teaching people about accounting. In the sense that, like, as a business owner, you could have a YouTube channel where you talk about different tax issues that small business owners face or how to maximize your tax refund every year, right? You understand what I mean? It's about being vocal. It's about teaching. It's about speaking things into existence and getting your mind on board. And because it's a sextile, it's like the universe is going to give you opportunities to do this. Okay. That's the biggest thing is that these opportunities are going to arise, but it's really up to you to take advantage of them. It's not going to be the case where it's just going to fall into your lap. It's like, let's say, okay, using the same example. I don't know why this came to me like that, but you're starting your own business, you're starting your own accounting firm, and your child has what is it called? Like occupation day or something. I don't even know if they still have this, but like where your parent comes to school and talks about what they do. Like, this would be one of those situations where you have the opportunity to speak to people, or maybe not kids, because I'm sure kids aren't going to be the ones that hire you. That was a bad example. But you know what I mean, right? There's going to be some sort of event, some sort of opportunity that comes up that allows you to speak, that allows you to teach, that's in alignment perhaps with this new dream that you have. Okay. I promise I'll come with a better example later, but you get what I mean. So take advantage. Okay. Then we have Venus trine Mars. Okay. So this should be interesting because Venus is still in. So Mars is in Leo. So Venus is in Aries. So this is a very fiery, very sexual kind of transit. Okay. This is one of those transits where feel free to shoot your shot. Okay. That's one. You may have this really, what I like about Venus, when we talk about Venus and Mars, it's very man versus woman or feminine versus masculine. Let me say that. And so it can seem very polarizing. But when you put Venus trine Mars, it's very harmonious. It allows that masculine energy and that feminine energy to harmoniously come together. Okay, so it is a great transit for dating. It's a great transit for initiating things, initiating a relationship, shooting your shot, you know, all of those things, right? It's also a great transit when it comes to making new money moves. Okay. Both Venus and Mars are in fire signs. Fire is all about action, it's all about passion. And Venus being the planet of money with being in Aries, right? Aries is the initiator. If there is something that you want to start financial wise, it could be savings, it could be investing, it could be, starting a business, a new income stream. Doing it under this transit, particularly with the fact that the moon is in Aries on that same day, it wouldn't necessarily be that bad. It actually might be a really good day for that. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to do the most. It could literally be one sort of baby step, right? Or sort of taking one sort of tiny action step. But taking action in the romantic sense, in the financial sense, is a very good look on Thursday, on or around Thursday. Okay. And that same day, we have the waning crescent moon in Aries. So we went from Pisces, that was like, okay, we have to put some sort of boundaries in place, right? Like that's non-negotiable. Now, when we get to Aries, Aries is all about action. And what I love the most about Aries is that Aries energy is laser like focused, right? It's like a laser pointer, actually. Like the ones that they use to mess with cats. I love watching those kind of videos, but it's laser like focus on one thing. So when the moon is waning in Aries, it's like if there is something that's not in alignment with that one thing that you're laser like focused on, let it go. Let it fall to the wayside. Don't give it your energy at this time. Okay. Remember, we're in the waning phase, so we're divesting ourselves of what we don't need. And the thing about Aries, Aries has this amazing ability to streamline things because Aries is typically usually like obsessed with something with that laser like focus. So if something isn't in alignment with that focus, just I don't want to say ignore it for now, but it probably doesn't need your attention and effort. Okay. So that is Thursday. So now let's move on to Friday. So on Friday, we've got Mercury sextile the North Node. Okay, so this is one of those transits that is very full. It's very fateful. Okay, whenever we're talking about the North Node, we're sort of talking about where we are headed, sort of our destiny, right? And the North Node is currently in Pisces. With the North Node in Pisces, it's this very spiritual, magical sort of destiny, right? It's like the destiny that you see in the movies, essentially, but it's a real thing, right? I like to think of the North Node in Pisces as like a prophecy, right? Now, a prophecy is something that I think we all experience in life. There are certain things in our lives that are destined, right? There are certain things that are prophesized in our lives. And the North Node in Pisces is kind of highlighting that fact. And then when you have Mercury sextile the North Node, this is sort of being aware of that destiny, aware of that prophecy. Mercury will still be in Taurus at this time, but it'll be at the very last degree of Taurus. And it's sort of like being aware of what you need to facilitate that destiny. Mercury is very logical, it's very cerebral. And even though the North Node is in Pisces and it has this very spiritual and magical sort of flavor to it, with Mercury and Taurus, it's like, okay, you can practically see what you need, or you can practically and realistically understand what this prophecy is. Now, when I say prophecy, a lot of times you think of like what comes to mind for me is like Jesus, right? Like Jesus had his life was planned out essentially, right? And he knew that he had to do this thing and all of this. It may not be that dramatic for you. let's just say that. Not to say that it can't be, but I'm just saying that the prophecy may be, okay, you're going into this career, or you're supposed to meet this person, or you're supposed to open this business, you're supposed to have this child, right? Still very important, but just not, I don't want you to, the whole point of Mercury sextile the North Node is like being realistic about this prophecy. And opportunities will arise that can help you facilitate this prophecy in a practical way. So, for instance, perhaps maybe you are a medical professional and the prophecy in your life is to open a clinic, right? Under this transit, you may start learning what you need to open a clinic. This may have you signing a lease for space to open this clinic. This could be someone giving you advice on real estate that would be great for this, or putting you in touch with someone who could make it happen, like a broker or some sort of project manager. Like, it's the practical nature, the practical things you need to facilitate this prophecy. And those opportunities are going to come up. Now, here's the thing. If you're not aware of what this prophecy is, then these opportunities may miss you. So I would say that over the course of this week, you really want to take some time to meditate, to communicate with your highest self. And I don't want to say figure out what this prophecy is, but just listen. Okay. And what I mean by that is listen to what the universe is trying to tell you. What has the universe been trying to show you? Right? What sort of signs and synchronicities have you been experiencing that maybe you've written off, you don't believe, or that you've been completely ignoring? Maybe the universe has really been telling you or maybe even gently nudging you in a certain direction. Have you been paying attention? Or even if you have been paying attention, have you been doubting it? Have you been saying, oh, I don't know. Here's what I've come to understand. And this isn't a blanket generalization, but I found it helpful when I realized this. Oftentimes your prophecy can feel so much bigger than you, or it feels like something you have to grow into. It feels like something you may not be prepared for. It feels like maybe something you're not worthy of. It seems larger than life. And oftentimes the action steps to fulfill this prophecy, to fulfill this destiny in your life, they can seem daunting. They can seem overwhelming. They can invoke fear. Because it's like you're given this thing and you're like, how am I going to do this? Or you really think that I can do this? Like, your prophecy requires you to grow. It requires you to stretch. It requires you to expand. And what I love about Mercury sextile the North Node, this transit that we're experiencing this week, is that opportunities to facilitate this in a very real and practical way sort of can help you not feel so overwhelmed, right? It can really give you a step in the right direction, a helping hand, a leg up even, right? And help you make logical sense of it. So again, I'll say that the task for you for this week is to just listen and observe. What is the universe trying to tell you? What direction is the universe guiding you in? What signs and synchronicities are coming up? And it's so interesting. At a certain point, it's like the universe is going to keep nudging you, keep tapping you on the shoulder, keep showing you, right? And it does get quite annoying sometimes, especially if you feel like you're not ready for it, if you feel like it's overwhelming, okay? But instinctively, intuitively, you know. And how you know that you know is that you feel it and immediately your mind tries to deny it, disprove it, erase it, say, nah, that's not for me. Oftentimes, that's a very good indication that you're probably on the right track, or this is probably the direction you're supposed to be going in. So, food for thought. That may not be how everybody experiences this, but when I learned that information, I found it super helpful. So, of course, I'm just going to pass it on to you. Okay, so that is Friday. So now let's move on to Saturday. So on Saturday, we've got Saturn moving into Aries, the Sun trine Pluto, Mercury conjunct Uranus in Taurus, and then the waning crescent moon in Taurus. Okay, so Saturn in Aries. Oh, there we go. Saturn in Aries. This is one of the major astrological events of 2025. Okay, Saturn spends about 2.5 to 3 years in each sign. So since about 2022, Saturn has been in Pisces, and Saturn has been making our dreams a reality. Saturn has really been getting us grounded in our spirituality, in the things that we want. It's sort of taken the esoteric and made it realistic. It took the heavens and brought it down to earth. Okay. Very profound kind of transit when Saturn was in Pisces. Now that Saturn is moving into Aries, it's a very different flavor. And Saturn in Aries is like, look, you got to get to work. Okay. Saturn in Aries is about action. Saturn in Aries is about discipline. Saturn in Aries is about fortitude. Saturn in Aries is about fighting the good fight. And to a certain extent, being defensive about the things that you want, the things that you desire. Okay. Saturn in Aries, above everything else, it wants you to work. However, Saturn is not without its challenges. It's not without its obstacles. So you're going to want to pay attention to whatever house Aries is in your chart. This is where, for the next 2.5 to 3 years, Saturn is going to be hanging out. And Saturn is going to be teaching you some lessons. Saturn is the taskmaster. Saturn is the teacher. Saturn is the disciplinarian. However, I want you to think of Saturn like this. Wherever Saturn is, whatever actions Saturn requires you to take, whatever lessons Saturn requires of you, Saturn will always leave you better than it found you. If you're willing to undergo those lessons, right? Think of it as school. You go from kindergarten through grade school and middle school, right? And then you graduate. Arguably, you're better. I'm not going to say better as a person, but you know more when you graduate middle school as opposed to when you entered kindergarten, right? And throughout that whole time period, there were what? There were lessons, there were tests, literally. There was learning, there was obstacles. Some days you felt good, other days you didn't understand what was going on. Some tests you passed with flying colors, other tests you may have failed. But how do you feel once you graduate? Once you can say, I put that behind me and I passed. It's this feeling of accomplishment, right? And then you move on to the next thing. You've elevated. Saturn's job is ultimately to level you up. It does it in a hard way, though. It does it in a harsh way. It does it in a way like a disciplinarian. So wherever Aries is in your natal chart is where the universe is going to put you to task. It's going to put you to work. It's going to build you. Saturn is very much a character building planet. Okay. Saturn will Yeah, Saturn will put you through the ringer in the best way possible in order to level you up. And so this is what we have to look forward to beginning this week. And then we've got the Sun trine Pluto. So the Sun newly in Gemini is going to trine Pluto in Aquarius. Okay. And so this is all about transformation. And this transformation is mental. I want you to put a gold star next to Saturday because Saturday may feel intense, particularly with Saturn just going into Aries. And then that same day, we've got the Sun trine Pluto. It can definitely feel intense. But there is going to be perhaps this mental motivation, this desire to change. There could be some sort of external stimulus that facilitates this change and transformation in the way that you think, in the way that you express yourself, in the way that you speak, in the way that you communicate, in the way that you relate to people. Okay. Ultimately, taking you into the future. This particular transit may have a lot to do with technology. You know, Pluto in Aquarius is very much emblematic of the age of Aquarius. So information, internet, AI. It could be the day that AI becomes sentient and, wages a war against us. Really could happen. I'm kidding, I hope, but it could have that sort of technology flavor to it. But either way, if you're looking to make a change in your life, understand that thoughts become things. So before something appears in your reality, it's in your mind first. And this is a great day to change your mind, to change your mindset. Okay. You're going to want to pay attention to wherever Gemini and Aquarius are in your natal chart. This will let you know what area of life you can really affect this change. But keep in mind with this particular transit, words are very, very, very potent. Okay. Words are very potent. Words carry a lot of weight. Words are very, very powerful. Okay. Oh, well, yes, words are very powerful. Your mind is very powerful. Your thoughts are very powerful. So pay attention to how you are thinking, your inner narrative. Okay. But it's a powerful day to change your mind. It's a powerful day to communicate. If you need something, if you are trying to convince someone of anything, Saturday would be the day to do it. Words carry a lot of weight. The power of persuasion is definitely in your favor on this day. So if you need to ask for money, if you need to borrow something, if you even want to shoot your shot, if you're trying to pitch something, Saturday may just be the day for you. Okay. Then that same day, we've got Mercury conjunct Uranus in Taurus. Now, Mercury and both Uranus are at the very last degree of Taurus. So it's as Taurus as they can get. Anytime you are talking anyone talks about Uranus, you're really talking about surprises. You're talking about expecting the unexpected. And with Mercury conjunct Uranus, this could be a surprise communication. This could be a surprise conversation. This could be a surprise transaction, or learning something that takes you out of your comfort zone. Uranus and Taurus has been like a raging bull in a china shop, right? Getting us out of our comfort zone, pushing us out of the way in a very sporadic and unstable kind of way, right? But with Mercury conjunct Uranus, be flexible, be adaptable, and most importantly, be open-minded. You may encounter a conversation, a person, a situation that's out of the norm, out of your comfort zone, but that may be everything that you need. You need to hear, you need to have, or you need to experience. So expect the unexpected, which could be a little difficult because that day we have the moon in Taurus. The moon is exalted in Taurus. And when the moon is in Taurus, all we want to do is stay in our comfort zone. All we want to do is be comfortable. All we want to do is nothing, chill. We don't want to be jolted out of our comfort zone. So Saturday may feel, I'd say out of all of the days this week, Saturday is going to be the day that's going to be the most intense, the most dynamic energy, the most interesting juxtaposition of energy. With Saturn going into Aries, Mercury conjunct Uranus, Moon in Taurus, plus the Sun trine Pluto. Very intense. The need or the desire to want to feel comfortable, but everything externally kind of not vibing with that. It's like you just want to stay in bed, but the universe is like, nope, you got to experience this. You got to talk to this person. You got to do something that you're not necessarily comfortable with. Do it. Do it. Do it. Okay. There'll be plenty of time for Netflix and chill after you experience whatever you need to experience. All right. So that is Saturday. And then finally, we get to Sunday. And on Sunday, Mercury finally moves into its home sign of Gemini. At the same time, Mercury is going to sextile Saturn. Okay. So Mercury will be in Gemini, Saturn will be in Aries. Okay. And so Mercury in Gemini is very much like the sun in Gemini. Okay, but Mercury is going to be at home in Gemini. So this is everything is going to be on speed, essentially. There's going to be an emphasis on communication, an emphasis on expression, an emphasis on thinking, thoughts, all of those things. When it comes to manifestation, Mercury in Gemini is the best time for affirmations, journaling, subliminals, all of those things. If you're looking to change your reality, change your mindset while Mercury is in Gemini. And Mercury will be in Gemini for about 2 to 3 weeks. So not that long, but over the next 2 to 3 weeks, this is the time for you to really use all of those modalities in order to manifest some new things in your life. Okay. And that same day, Mercury is going to sextile Saturn. Okay, so what did we talk about before? Saturn in Aries is going to put you to task. It's about starting something new, right? Having the motivation to start something new, but understanding that it may be a long process. The thing about Saturn is it also covers time. So Saturn in Aries is like undergoing or starting a laborious new project. It's like deciding to go to grad school, deciding to go to med school, deciding to start a new job, deciding to start your own business. These are laborious projects that come with ups and downs and lessons and obstacles and delays and things. And so Mercury sextile Saturn is really about opportunities to learn, okay? It's like if you are embarking on this new journey that Saturn in Aries is sort of having you embark upon, Mercury sextile Saturn is going to give you opportunities to learn what you need to learn about the process. So keep your ears and eyes open for whatever information comes your way. It's a great day to do research. It's a great day to really put a plan in place. Remember, Saturn in Pisces was very much about dreaming and making dreams into reality, but Saturn in Aries is about taking that dream and taking action. And part of the action that Mercury sextile Saturn is going to give you is the ability to put a plan in place, right? It's not enough to just say, okay, I just want to do this. Well, if you do this, what are the steps? What do you need? Who do you need assistance from? Putting a plan in place is going to be the best use of the energy. And because it's a sextile, I feel like the universe is going to give you opportunities to do so. All right. And that's a beautiful way to end the week. All right, my loves. So that concludes this edition of the weekly Astro forecast. I sincerely hope that you were able to get at least one important piece of information that you can use going into this week and beyond. Again, my first workshop of my summer workshop series, Seasonal Living 101, is this Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Link is in the description box below. Definitely check it out. And also check out the links in the description box below for a whole bunch of other goodies and all the kind of stuff that I have to offer. All right, my loves, thank you so much for tuning in. Have an amazing week, and I'll see you same time, same place, same wonderful information. Take care.